Ms. Sivongile Mwamba, and at the time business was interrupted. This motion was under consideration, it being 1855 hours. Madam First Deputy Speaker interrupted the proceedings and debate on the motion stood adjourned. And so we do expect Mr. Alex Katakwe, who is Solwezi East Member of Parliament, to continue his debate to this motion, as at the time business was being interrupted, he was on the floor contributing to this motion.
And the House, yes, adjourned at 1856 hours. So that was business for yesterday, Thursday, 13th June 2024. And just now we shift our attention to today's order paper, and we look at what is on the order paper for today.
Exactly, Pauline. And on today's order paper, we do expect some announcements by Madam Speaker, and thereafter the House will consider urgent matters without notice.
We also have one question to be considered under Standing Order 82. We have 7 questions to be considered under Standing Order 80, and we also have 1 question for written answer to be considered under Standing Order 81, and we also have 1 motion. And just now the details of some of the questions to be posed on the floor of the House.
So the question for oral answer under Standing Order 82 is expected to be asked by Dr. Christopher Kalila, who is Lukulu East Member of Parliament, and his question is directed to the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. He wants to know, in A, whether government is aware that more than 20 people have died in the past 1 month in Southern Province and other parts of the country after consuming a homemade illicit alcohol commonly known as Chiyavi in Southern Province. And in B, if so, what urgent measures are being taken to curb the vice and to avert further loss of lives?
And on the questions for oral answer under Standing Order 80, we have a question coming from Kalabo Central Member of Parliament, Mr. Chinga Miutu, and is directing his question to the Minister of Finance and National Planning. In Part A of the question, he wants to know whether there are any economic planners in rural districts countrywide, and the Part B of the question, if so, how many they collaborate with, if so, how they collaborate with other stakeholders in enhancing social and economic development, and Part C of the question, what measures are being taken to enhance collaboration with other stakeholders?
Question 355 is expected to come from Mr. Jonathan Daka, who is Chadiza Member of Parliament, and is expected to ask the Minister of Fisheries and Livestock, in A, when the government will operationalize deep tanks that were constructed in 2013 and 2014 in Chadiza parliamentary constituency. In B, how many deep tanks await operationalization, and in C, what the cause of the delay in operationalization the deep tanks is, and in D, what the total cost of constructing the deep tanks are.
We have a question coming from Bavala Member of Parliament, Mr. Joseph Munsanje, and is directed his question to the Minister of Youth, Sport and Arts. In the first part of the question, he wants to know whether government has any plans to construct a community sports development center in Mbabala constituency, and Part B of the question, if so, when the plans will be implemented.
Question 357 is expected to come from Mr. Mulenga Fuve, who is Chiluvi Member of Parliament, and is expected to ask the Minister of Transport and Logistics, in A, whether the government has any plans to procure an additional dredger to service the main harbour at Chiluvi Island in Chiluvi district, in B, if so, when the plans will be implemented, and in C, what the estimated cost of the dredger is.
We have question number 358 expected to come from Chairman North Member of Parliament, Mr. Yota Mutayachalo, and he is directed his question to the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security. In the first part of the question, he wants to know whether government has any plans to construct border posts in some points in between Zambia and Malawi. And just now on the screen we are seeing the Speaker's procession making its way into the chamber. We cross to the floor of the House. Good morning.
Members of Parliament, Madam Speaker, Zambia, proud and free, land of wealth and glory, unity, victors in the struggle for our rights. We want freedom's fight, oh, and strong and free. Africa is our own motherland, passion with and blessed by those who blend. Let us all our people join as one, brothers under the sun, oh, one, strong and free. One land and one nation is our cry, dignity and peace is Zambia's sky, like a noble eagle in its flight. Zambia, praise to thee, oh, one, strong and free. Praise be to God, praise be, bless our great Zambia, Zambia, Zambia. Remain we stand under the flag of our land. Zambia, praise to thee, oh, one, strong and free.
Prayer. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to consider with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important responsibilities in this land. Let your blessing descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation, in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Honorable members, I have one announcement to make. The announcement is that, honorable members, I have received communication to the effect that, in the absence of Her Honor the Vice President, who is attending to other government business, the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security, Honorable Jack J. Mwimbu MP, has been appointed acting leader of government business in the House from today, 14th June 2024, until further notice. I thank you. Okay, we make progress. Urgent matters without notice. I see no indication. We move. Question for oral answer under Standing Order 82. The Honorable Member for Lukulu East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 353.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. I'm sure the acting leader of government businesses can step in.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Honorable Dr. Christopher Kalila asked the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development the following question: whether the government is aware that more than 20 people have died in the past 1 month in Southern Province and other parts of the country after consuming a homemade illicit alcohol, commonly known as GRB, in Southern Province? And B, if so, what urgent measures are being taken to curb the vice and to avoid further loss of lives? Our response, Madam Speaker: in responding to the honourable member's question, I wish to state as follows. A, the Ministry is aware that people died in the past 1 month in Southern Province and other parts of the country after consuming a homemade illicit alcohol. The Ministry was made aware of the death of people as a result of drinking illicit alcohol through the media, and eventually the affected local authorities reported the matter to the Ministry. B, following the report, the following measures were undertaken by the affected districts. 1, investigated the matter further through the relevant institutions. 2, enforcing the Liquor Licensing Act of 2011 and the Public Health Act Cap 295 by immediately banning the sale of illicit alcohol in the district. 3, intensify inspections through a combined team of the local authorities, public health inspectors, and the Zambia police. 4, encourage the local authorities to carry out sensitization through the civic and local leaders. Madam Speaker, the Ministry has encouraged the district to continue sensitizing the communities on the dangers of alcohol while continuing to enforce the provisions of the law. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. Supplementary questions? The Honourable Member for Lukulu East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, these deaths have continued as late as last weekend. Some other people died in Chongwe as a result of consuming this illicit alcohol, and many other places, including Mitete, which is next to my constituency, as early as last week. 5 people were buried. So it would appear this is spreading around the country, and we need to do something about it. The question I have to the Minister is that, is the Ministry of Local Government willing to mount a public awareness campaign using the subnational structures, such as the traditional authorities which fall under them, such as the World Development Committees which fall under them, such as the councillors which fall under them? Thank you.
Since the Honourable Substantive Minister is around, the Honourable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development may take up the answers.
Thank you, Madam. Before I do that, permit me to apologize for the late entry. I was trapped in the traffic. Thank you, Honourable Member of Parliament for Lukulu, for this very important question. As many of you may know, this is a very passionate matter for me. And I once got myself into trouble trying to reverse the trend of brewing of illicit alcohol. To be specific, the cachaso, which has several names. Some call it Maureen Mukia, others call it number 1. The MP who asked this question is also fully aware of my passion for this, because just a month ago, him and I were at Soweto Market doing a public sensitization campaign against Junta, which is another alcohol brand which unfortunately is seeming to be brewed under license in this country. Yes, this question could not have come at a better time than now, and especially his follow-up question, which is seeking for us to get all involved, from the civic leadership, the ward development committees, to go on a revolutionary campaign against this, in the manner that we were supported by our colleagues from both divides when we were doing the reversal of people trading in undesignated places. My appeal is that we should hold each other's hands to make sure that we align our people's activity to the law, especially where this alcohol brewing is concerned, because it's killing our people. Some of it is killing them slowly, in the case of cachaso, and this new one, which they make out of nugget, Polish methylated spirit, and other concoctions, is killing them instantly. And so the argument before, Madam Speaker, has been that for those who are brewing it, that we are doing this in order to take our children to school. This government has now given the citizens free education. And because that became the mitigating factor, when people said, which means I'm brewing this because I want to educate my children, that argument now has fallen out. And this is the reason why my appeal, I'm appealing that we hold each other's hands in order to make sure that we mercilessly follow the law, so that those who are brewing this illicit alcohol can be placed where they belong. If the law against illicit alcohol can be followed, we will correct this Honourable Member of Parliament for Lukulu.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Pambashe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Last time when my Honourable Minister brother walked in late, I said the age is slowly catching up with him. He understands the traffic in Lusaka, but that is just a passing. So, Madam Speaker, the consumption of drug and substance abuse in Zambia is quite on a very high rate and very alarming level. Madam Speaker, I want the Minister to confirm whether it is laxity on part of his employees who are mandated with the enforcement of the Liquor Licensing Act, because in Zambia we have sufficient legislation. It is just implementation. Is it a laxity by your workers that are mandated with the enforcement of various pieces of registration that controls the trading, the consumption, and the production of intoxicated substances? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Indeed, Madam Speaker, the laws that exist are sufficient. But the sufficiency of any legislation or law sits in the fact that people can together agree that laws are there for human beings and they should be implemented to align society. This is a problem that we inherited ourselves, and I'll explain to you what I mean. If you go, Madam Speaker, to Freedom Way, to Lumumba Road, and also many other CBDs in our country, you will find that there is arbitrary sale of alcohol at every street corner. And this just became an acceptable norm. When we took office, and as pronounced by our head of state, each time he comes to address this parliament, and through this parliament, the nation, about the values and ethics, he has had a full page, if not more, on the effects of alcohol intake among our adolescents, among our adults, and this issue now that has culminated into human beings being referred to an abhorrent name called junkies is not something that has started today. It is something that has happened over time. And I do appreciate the question by the Honourable MP for Pambashe And this is why I made this clarion call, that can we, for once, work together? Because this government is not scared of doing the right thing, as previous governments may have been. But sometimes we get into unnecessary discussions, where when we move into aligned society for good, others will take political mileage and say, but Bazadia Chan, which means what are they going to eat? I wished the MP for Pambashe would have maybe given a preamble before he answered the question, to answer to my call, whether or not they are willing to run with us on this matter, to ban and to make the punishment of those who perpetrate this more punitive. I would be very comfortable. As a minister, I would congratulate you if you gave me your pledge that this is a matter that we need to nip in the bud now, because the destruction that it causes for the generations now and those that will come after us is too humongous to even contemplate.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Lukulu, do you have another question, or you are fine?
I think I'll give a chance to my colleagues.
Okay, very well. The Honorable Member for Mitete.
Madam Speaker, four souls one day, and one is currently gone blind in Chitokoloki Mission Hospital. Madam Speaker, there were 10. Minister, that's how serious this matter is, more so in the rural places. The days of 7 days, which were our malos, these things never used to be there, because it took process. 7 days, which were malos. No meaning, that's how it was called. Madam Speaker, no one died. No one died. People would even be satisfied. It was so nutritious. Where have we lost it all? Why can't we, Minister? Why can't we go back? Why? Madam Speaker, it would look like it's a fun matter, but literally not. People are dying, and people never died when it was 7 days, which were our malos. Minister, are you going to engage me and find a way so that we sensitize, we educate, and go back to 7 days, which were our malos, so that people will not be dying the way they are dying. Madam Speaker, thank you very much.
For those that might not be familiar with the 7 days which were malos, it just means that brewing beer for people in Western Province takes 7 days to mature. The beer to mature, you need to brew it for 7 days. I don't know how long it takes to brew whiskey and so the Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament, for me. Madam, in answering the question that has been asked to me by the Honorable Member of Parliament, allow me to just be slightly long-winded about it, so that maybe we can get to a point where we will get to reverse this trend. We have a national alcohol policy in this country. which had been gathering dust for a very long time and has not been put in force. We have NGOs, and the one I'll refer to is one that is run by Dr. Sakala and also Mrs. Melupi, the Minister of Infrastructure. I have had several engagements with that group, and I have also been invited to their symposiums where they have displayed children who have gone through rehabilitation after being hooked to this alcohol. So it is a very serious matter that we require to look at. During the time when they were doing 7 days, Buchalaba Malozi, where we come from, we call it Gankata, it is also 7 days. There was also what they called Kachipembe, Madam Speaker. But Kachipembe is a slightly harder alcohol, and it has now graduated into what they call Kambama. Mbama, Madam, in literal translation, is a slap. And so once you take this one, it's like you have been given a slap, and you get inebriated instantly, and sometimes you don't even recover from that inebriation to a point where you have to go and get medical treatment. Now, here at Chainama Hospital, if you dared to go, if you really care about the effects or what the devastating effects, the debilitating effects of this alcohol business in this country, then you get a fair appreciation. And my request, Madam Speaker, is that maybe you can compel members to take a tour of Chainama to see how the people in the medical circles are battling to rehabilitate people who have gone under, who have been victims of this alcohol. Then we'll appreciate how deep this problem has become for our country. Here, this is the Legislative Assembly, what we Tonga call Bungalia Zambia, the gathering for Zambians. Under 2 kilometers here in Chilulu, from where we are speaking, in Garden Compound, Chilulu here, this is where we went and started spilling alcohol all over with my staff when I took my first appointment. It is happening. When we were fighting cholera with Mrs. Masebo here, we went into George Compound, those so-called epicenters. Madam, we found something like a size of a football pitch of people brewing alcohol in broad daylight. And when we tried to stop them, they had an avalanche of stones thrown at us. And it requires the police, probably even the army, to take a position of cleanup. During Dr. Kaunda's time, Madam, those things used to happen. They were cleaning up foreigners, they were cleaning up this alcohol business. It is possible to do it. Now, where did we lose it? Search me. Me, I've been a minister just for 2 years. This country has been here for now, we're running to 60 years. So, there are people who were there before us, and there are people who were there before those people who were before us. Along the way, we lost it. And I'm urging this August House, this Legislative Assembly, to make it deliberate. And maybe you can invite Dr. Sakala and Mrs. Milupi to come one morning, to come and show us here the debilitating effects of this thing that we are discussing today. Probably we will hold our hands, because if you are not affected, if you are not an alcoholic yourself, you may have a cousin or a nephew or an aunt or some distant relative who has fallen into this pit. We need to pick them up from this pit so that, and once we do that, it's going to be all right. Finally, Madam Speaker, it was common before around us politicians, and I'm not apportioning blame, around us politicians to use our supporters, so-called cadres, by first making them drunk. You give them alcohol to do things that are not acceptable in society. It was common. We saw it last week. It emerged. And it culminated into the head of state making a pronouncement that those who were involved in that must not be spared. He directed The Minister of Home Affairs, just give me a break. Give me a break. This is a serious matter. It's a very serious matter, and you shouldn't trivialize it. The President had to make a press briefing to actually say those who want to make this ugly face of caterism and consumption of alcohol, because clearly those who had gone to the funeral of our departed young friend, Brian Mizinga, had been inebriated. They had been intoxicated with alcohol. And if that is let and not nipped in the bud, we'll continue to now lose it. We are trying to reverse what we lost, but we need everyone to be involved in this particular fight. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much. Quite an interesting topic, but we have to move, so it will not be possible to allow all the people that have indicated to ask. So I will allow 4 more questions. The Honorable Member for Ron.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, I realize that you are a very passionate minister who wants to fight this illegal scourge, and I want to encourage you that hearing from you, you are ready to fight this illegality at the expense of your popularity, and that is how it should be. Honorable Minister, it is sad indeed that some of these outlets, actually legal outlets which are licensed by your local authorities, have even gone, Madam Speaker, to the extent of adding what they call hatans. You just mentioned Chainama. This drug, Minister, is the drug that is given to people who are treated at psychiatric wards. The surprising, Minister, why is it that your authorities do not take frequent checks on testing of what is sold in these legally licensed outlets, but instead they are only proactive and very active when it comes to check on whether this outlet is paid their fire fees, liquor license fees, and yet leave this very, very important aspect of checking on what is being sold? Why is it so, Honorable Minister?
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you once again, and Honorable Member of Parliament for Ron, I want to show my gratitude for that question and for the kind words. Sir, cultural shift is not like switching on and off a light bulb. I'll begin by just making that blanket statement. Cultural shift requires constant and resilient panel beating for people to realize that this culture that we had accepted as a norm must come to an end. Sir, there are alternatives to getting this right. And one of them would be what other administrations, political administrations, did when they took office. If you remember, when certain parties took office, they fired a lot of people. They dismissed a lot of people for various reasons, some of which may have even been for political patronage, and those who they believed were not their supporters. When we took office, I asked my president to say, look, we need to get rid of some principal officers, those who we clearly knew were political. And the president says, give them 2 years to reform. Don't touch anyone. Give them time. Because we had regimes before that existed on the basis of, if you don't belong, then you are out. Or in short, live and let it die. The president told me, you are not dismissing anyone, but sound the message that everyone must align. You remember how we were lamenting during the time we were in the opposition that the Ministry of Local Government was the most badly hit in terms of employment based on political lines. Example given, I am an MP for Mazabuka Central constituency. At the time we had not even a single fire engines. We received 12 fire officers in that council who were playing draft half the time. And there was no advert to employ those same firemen. They were just employed and sent to Mazabuka and sent everywhere. What do you expect the culture to be when people are employed based on political patronage? So we have been in office for 2 years and 9 months. We have seen some alignments of certain officers. But that thing, that old thing of, people wanting to remain subversive, I have been here on this floor of this house, and I've said it without shame, that some councils still have a lot of corrupt people. So yes, I have had, I'll give you an example. One moment, these inspectors for Lusaka City Council were in Lilanda doing inspections. And where they found a little bit of fault, they will demand money and they will not give receipts. So this very clever woman who somewhat found my number and said, "Bantu banu bali kuno, but spoke 500 nabakopa," which means I've taken a photograph of them. I said, fine, good. I sent this picture to the town clerk. Find this officer for me. And they found her. It was a lady. Give me her number. I called. I said, come with that 500 you took from Lilanda. Come here to my office. It was after 17 hours. Now, I'm only one minister trying to do this right. And we've sent a message to our officers to say, align everyone so that they do not ignore the things such as now illicit sale of alcohol at every street corner, and not even give licenses, because your question was sitting in the realm of licensing and ignoring how society is degenerating. We're trying our best, and we need your help. Mazabuka, where I come from, has been the worst hit, because you remember we have a mine there called Zambia Sugar, and the residual commodity that they do there called molasses is a big ingredient for illicit alcohol. I have tried my best, and I've said, look, at the expense of losing an election, I'm okay with it. But we need to save our children. And we're trying our best. We haven't won the fight yet, but we're doing everything that we can. And this business is big, Madam Speaker. If you go to Katima Mulilo now, and if we were more serious than we are, you will find that in those big trucks that are backloads going, there are liters and liters of this cachaso brewed in Mazabuka and Lusaka being exported. We are exporters of this illicit alcohol as a country. And so it is a big, big syndicate that requires all of us to hold hands to kill it. I'm sorry to use such a term. I withdraw the word kill it, but to make sure we eradicate it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Momba.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Honorable Minister, from this question, it's obvious that most of these people who have died are from the rural areas. And I'm aware now, if we go to Mitete, for example, and Kalabo, you'll find a lot of people are already drunk, as ill as 8 hours. Kalabo, Mitete, and other areas. Even at the cemetery here, Repasi Cemetery, if you go now, you find that there's beer being sold. But my question is, to what extent are you engaging the traditional leaders, especially in the villages, like the chiefs and the headmen, to curb the fight against this illicit alcohol, that which is being consumed even as we sit just now? To what extent have you engaged the traditional leaders? Madam Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much for that question, Honorable Member of Parliament for Momba. The traditional leaders are partners. And the traditional leaders, I can confirm here without any fear of any contradiction, that are just as equally concerned about this problem that we are facing. And it may not be true or completely true that it's predominant in the rural areas. You are right. Go just here. We can take a walk. We don't even need to drive. We'll take a walk on Katima here, Katima Muliro Road. We'll find all the kids are inebriated. They are drunk. They wake up drunk. They sleep drunk. And so it is a matter that, unfortunately, is a little difficult to manage, because this alcohol sometimes is transported in the pocket. How do you license a pocket? These rucksacks the people carry full of alcohol, and they sell, they are moving shops. As a local authority supervisor, we have done our best to make sure that bars open according to the designated time, the beer halls, the taverns. Only hotels are allowed to sell this alcohol anytime because they normally sit in the comfort of their domain. But the laws do exist that there are designated timing for open bars. How do we get to resolve this matter of children being found drunk at 7 o'clock in the morning? I don't know. I need to be helped because I'm not a jack of all trades. I need help. I must confess I really need help. And if we can pack some of these topical issues away from politics and simply say, let's attack this thing as an army of MPs, we will get it right. The problem is that we ourselves sometimes are the villains. We are the ones who, in order for us to get some political mileage, when youths come, you just unleash money, they go and buy alcohol. Madam, nowadays, if you have 5 kwacha, you can buy alcohol that will intoxicate you beyond repair. Just 5 kwacha. And so this is not a one-man show. It requires all of us. If you ask my sister here, the Ministry of Community Development, these are the things she deals with on a daily basis. Homeless children. And unfortunately, as I terminate, to answer your question, this issue of alcohol is not mutual exclusive to the loss of respect. When these kids are drunk, be it in the rural areas, they're living insult a chief. What can you tell me? Telling him telling a chief. Unfortunately, we've got to that point, and we must accept that the chiefs now sometimes shy away to try and resolve these things because the whole thing goes with loss of respect. And they insult the Royal Highnesses when they try to correct. And there are some champions, chiefs like Chief Chamuka in Central Province. He's a real champion to bring people, to align them to order. Early marriages, he's a champion to fight that. Alcohol intake, he's a champion to fight that. And there are many other Royal Highnesses who have taken a lead into this. So we need to help them. We as MPs must also take the role. We must be known to lose an election because you were trying to do something right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Chenge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Minister. This is a very sensitive and also very important topic. Madam Speaker, sometimes in order to cure something, we need to do something that can put a stop or an end to that. It's like if cigarettes are made illegal, it will be very, people will be going for something that is illegal. What am I saying? Madam Speaker, I'm a woman of God, but I feel the only way maybe we can overcome this, maybe if you work together with the Zambia brewers or these other brewers and see how you can maybe start to brewing this on, I don't know, I'm trying to find a better way. Sorry? Okay, if you look at whisk or this Scotch, how it started in Scotland, it was done by the peasants. What I'm trying to say is, would it be possible that maybe you come back to this house and see how we can agree as a house, and these people, they start manufacturing it where it will not be illegal, but to help them how to go about it, without it being illegal and it being what it is now, killing people. Maybe if the government does that, we will not be having lives, we will not be losing lives. My question is, can't we just try to legalize this and try to help them to make it, to commercialize it? That's what I wanted to ask, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
That question, thank you very much, Madam. And also allow me, I've just seen my colleague, Honorable Kalimi, who has just walked in, and to say that thank God you are back with us. To regulate, maybe that was the word that my sister was trying to bring out. Are we able to regulate the production of this alcohol? All those things, Honorable MP, they sit in various packages. They sit within nutrition. Do you think you can regulate the brewing of cachaso and it would pass the nutrition test? The answer will probably be no. Because cachaso is made out of leftover consumable debris, shima that you have left. They first make it go bad. It must ferment, ukubola. It must first ferment. And yes, it may be okay to attempt to do that, but I promise you that the cost of doing that may not be attractive, because those people who you are referring to, the brewers, the ones who are within the confines of the law, are the biggest losers now, because they are competing with these people who make alcohol from nuggets. You just get polish, you open a can of polish, you get methylated spirit, you put. How do you regulate that? Because it's clearly wrong. You can't. Spirit is not for internal consumption. It is for external use. So polish is for brushing shoes. How do you even start to regulate how you should mix polish and spirit to make alcohol and make it legal? So there are things that are just a simple no. And there are others that you can say, maybe let us try to regulate. Junta, for instance. Junta is being brewed under the law. But the Bureau of Standards are also battling to see whether the license is being adhered to. Because junta is killing people. It is clear it's killing people. Even this, what do you call it? Tujilijili. You know, Professor Nkanduluo, when she was Minister of Local Government, I think, or Health, she took a giant step and simply said, I'm banning this thing. It was based on packaging, because it was creating litter, as well as it was too cheap that you could carry 3, 4, 5 sachets of tujilijili worth 10 kwacha, and by the time it is 12 hours, you are on fire, you are drunk. And so that rapidity of getting our people intoxicated is what should be worrisome. Go to countries like the United Arab Emirates, where 95% of the people are sober all the time. You will see that they've developed also. So even this thing of alcohol, although many of us, including some of us, this one who's speaking here, I taste alcohol from time to time. It has to be regulated by the user himself. Okay? And that is the problem. People just wake up and drown themselves into their problems, wake up and drown themselves. Before you know it, they have shakes. Every morning they can't function because they are trembling. And there are many who have that problem. And we need to have a solution that will help all of us to nip this matter in the bud once and for all.
Well, there are so many questions, but we need to make progress. But it's very clear that we have a problem at hand, and it needs solutions. And for us as Parliament, we are there to provide solutions. The Minister has clearly said that he's just one man. He needs help. So which committee, where the committee which can deal with this? Why don't we take up as a topical issue, investigate, carry out an inquiry, and make recommendations? Honorable Member for Pambashi, you have a suggestion.
Madam Speaker, your Committee on Youth and Child Affairs, is presenting a report on drug and substance abuse, I think, in this city. It's a matter that we did probe. We went to China and we did a lot of public hearing. And it's a report that was adopted yesterday, awaiting presentation to this parliament. But I was rising on the point of order, Madam Speaker, except you noted also I mentioned.
Okay, no, it's okay. Then if that committee report is coming for discussion, let's try to see and address this problem and make the necessary recommendations. But I believe all of us, members of parliament, need to take responsibility, because I think it's total moral decay of our society for people to be involved in this level of alcohol abuse, whereby, well, I'm just making an observation as a parent, whereby people would want to educate their children, killing other people's children. I think that doesn't stand well. So as Parliament, I think we have a responsibility to help the Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development and come up with recommendations that can be implemented. So we can make progress. We'll wait for that report, Honorable Member for Pambasha, as you present. You said you had a point of order which has been overtaken, I'm sure. It has been overtaken. Thank you. Okay, what's the point of order?
Madam Speaker, something else. And Madam Speaker, I know it is very cold, and we must not lose our dress code. Madam Speaker, I've seen a lot of coats, and I can see that it is not raining. But my brother, Minister of Local Government, is well togged in the raincoat as he keeps on addressing Parliament. Is it allowed, Madam Speaker, to come with the raincoat in the chamber? I seek your guidance. I may not cite the specific standing orders, you may be aware. We have new standing orders, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Well, I don't know. From here, I can't see whether it's a raincoat or just a coat. It's a weather coat. You know, our rooms are not centrally heated. Maybe the Secretariat can increase on the temperature so that it's okay. It's okay. Okay. So, well, Honorable Minister of Local Government, I don't know. Is that a coat or a raincoat?
Madam, if I took this bottle of water and poured it on myself, I'll be wet. Yes. So clearly it's not a raincoat. It's a winter coat.
So that is a winter coat from Southern. Okay, let's make progress. They are my cousins, so don't worry. We are very rich. Questions for oral answer under Standing Order 80, the Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 354.
The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The three parts to the question laid on the floor by the Honorable Member for Kalabo. At A, whether there are economic planners in a rural district countrywide. B, if so, how they collaborate with other stakeholders in enhancing social and economic development, and C, what measures are being taken to enhance the collaboration with stakeholders. Madam Speaker, under A, yes, the government has economic planners who are called social economic planners and physical planners, and are found at district level in all the local authorities countrywide, under the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Further to this, the government has socio-economic planners working in 10 provincial planning units at provincial level, which fall under the Ministry of Finance and National Planning. At B, these socio-economic planners and fiscal planners are responsible for coordinating the socio-economic and special planning in districts, as well as enhancing the collaboration with stakeholders. The collaboration with which is the apex consultative and advisory body on national development. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary questions. The Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prompted by the amount of the CDF from 2022, which was increased to the current 30 million plus. But when you walk or go into the communities, some places it's difficult for you to note that there are these quarters poured into these districts. Now, if there are those socio-economic planners, Honorable Minister, how frequently do these planners interact or engage with the beneficiaries of these monies, such that there's a positive output in the usage of these monies? How frequent do these people interact with the communities? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Honorable Member for Kalabo. Obviously, it is hard for me to be able to answer the question of how frequently they do interact. All I can say is that in the light of more resources provided to councils, including the fact that councils now have motor vehicles through the CDF monitoring arrangement, there's less excuse, there's little excuse now for the two not to interact. So I think that it's up to each one of us, working together with our councils and working together with the Minister of Local Government, who supervises the councils, to ensure that this interaction takes place more frequently. I would also say that it is up to us, honorable members, to push, because enhanced CDF is something that is new to our country. And obviously, there have been teething problems. Some of these teething problems have been addressed, issues of red tape and so forth. Some of them have been addressed, but clearly a lot more remains. And therefore, this is why I'm saying that it's up to all of us to keep on pushing until the remaining problems are resolved. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Kamfinsa.
Madam Speaker, the question that has been raised by the Member of Parliament for Kalabo is a very interesting question. And just to take advantage, the question relates to economic planners in rural areas. And I believe these are officers that have been assigned work in the new districts that have been created. I think we've seen quite a number of new districts set up. Minister of Finance, one of the challenges that has been faced in most
local authorities that are dealing with this particular issue is the issue of the salary scales for our economic planners in rural areas. Because obviously if you have a planner in Kitwe and a planner in Kalabo, the salary scale is the same. But because these are young men and women that are also looking for other opportunities where they would want to work, my question therefore is, what are you doing as a ministry to provide some form of better pay for these officers that obviously are comparing their salary scales with officers, say, in the Ministry of Finance? Because if you are an economist and you go into Kalabo and your same classmates are working in the Ministry of Finance, same qualifications, you are tempted to want to get back to the urban setup. So what are you doing as a ministry to ensure that these very important workers are allowed to perform their duties in that particular rural setup? Because Kalabo needs economic planners. Literally all rural areas need economic planners. But what are we doing to retain the staff so that we don't lose that expertise as we train them in local government? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable. I do appreciate your question, but let me also add that the situation that obtains today is actually an improvement from what was there before. If you recall, it was common in councils for employees to sit and wait for months and months without getting anything. But since the time, I think especially this financial year, when we said that these councils, because now they've received enhanced CDF, therefore the equalization fund that used to be there before, the relevance of that for infrastructure is reduced because CDF has taken that role. That equalization fund was converted into enhancement for councils to be able to pay their employees. And I'm glad to say that now employees in councils consistently get their pay on time. So that is an improvement. Beyond that, I would say that there was a point that the Minister of Local Government made here where employment in councils was not done systematically, looking at the needs of the council and providing employees on the basis of that need. There he was saying that there was a time when all of a sudden so many firemen were brought to the council. I can confirm that even in Kalabo, we had that similar problem. So I believe that this is not a matter that necessarily means that the Treasury must enhance salaries. I think this is much more a matter whereby councils can be given the autonomy or more power to look at their manpower needs, if necessary, make adjustments so that the employees who are more meaningful, who can add more value, can get even better compensation. And that, of course, includes the possibility of freeing money committed to fire tenders or fire employees who don't have much work to do, so that that money can go to the service of the employees who are much more needed. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Nyimba with the last.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, the rural areas, even in the urban areas, for people to appreciate what any government is doing is to see to it that the locals in the communities are appreciating and receiving the most needed economical efforts coming from government. Minister, your government has done a good thing by providing about the money we're giving out to grants and the small soft loans we're giving out there. Now, if you look at the socio-economic planners we have in our councils, we have vehicles, you've bought vehicles for them. And this question from Kalau, because this is tackling the whole country. If you look at what is happening in the communities, people are not appreciating how much is coming from CDF. Look at the money you are putting in. It's a lot. Then if you go down to the ground, seeing people who are benefiting, the socio-economic plan has to help out. Understand? You need to help out. These are the people receiving money with lesser training. They don't understand much about financial discipline. And some of them, yes, those like in my constituents, trained by World Vision are successive, trained by the council, are not succeeding in whatever we're giving them. Okay? So now my question is there a way that you can restructure the system where the socio-economic planner does not fall under the department, under the director of planning? Because these are the people with the same qualification. Maybe the socio-economic planner has got even more qualifications than the DPO, but he has to report to the DPO because of the structure. And if there is an inefficiency within the Department of Planning by the boss, meaning the other part suffers, is there a means or is there a way that you can restructure the setup? I think that is where I see the weakness in this thing. Is there a way you can restructure the establishment between the socio-economic planner and the director of planning so that they become two departments so that we can enhance what you are trying to achieve under CDF? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Madam, and I want to thank the Honorable Member for Nyimba for that question. First of all, I would say that it's not correct entirely to say that people are not appreciating the role that CDF is playing. Certainly in my constituency, and I know in many others, people appreciate what CDF is doing. They are pleased at the fact that for the first time since independence, more classrooms are being constructed. For the first time since independence, rural centers are being constructed, boreholes being constructed, school children going to school for paid by government. They appreciate these things. But of course, I agree with you that more can be done. And this is where the issue of the attitude, quality, and of the council workers come in. We can certainly do more. And this is why I said at the beginning of this question that it is up to us, members of parliament, to interact more often, review the problems that we're facing, and make suggestions on how we can improve, including the suggestions that you've put on the table. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. We need to catch up. We are behind in terms of time. So move very fast on the next items. Next question, the Honorable Member for Chadiza.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. People of Chadiza are asking question 355.
The Honorable Minister of Fisheries and Livestock.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Member for Chadiza is asking the Ministry a question in 4 parts. A, when the government will operationalize deep tanks that were constructed in 2013 and 2014 in Chadiza parliamentary constituents. In B, how many deep tanks are waiting operationalization? In C, what the cause of the delay in operationalizing the deep tanks is? And in D, what the total cost of constructing the deep tanks was. Madam Speaker, our response is as follows. The House may wish to note that the New Dawn administration has remodeled the provision of deep tanks by making them community-driven and based on the needs of each community. Therefore, operationalization of deep tanks should be led by communities themselves with the support of community development funds. Indeed, Madam Speaker, all deep tanks that have been constructed and are non-operational are earmarked for operationalization by the communities using CDF. In C, some of the deep tanks are not operational because they require some rehabilitation works, while others require operational requisites such as deep chemicals. Indeed, the total cost of constructing the deep tanks was 648,508 kwacha. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supplementary questions? The Honorable Member for Chadiza.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, we appreciate the manner in which you have responded to this question. However, Minister, we have 7 deep tanks that have been idling for more than 10 years. And Minister, that translates into waste for expenditure, especially that the resources that went into this infrastructure could have been channeled to other useful sectors of our economy. Now we are being informed that we need to use CDF to operationalize these deep tanks. Honorable Minister, CDF has got so many competing needs in my constituency. Therefore, that's what maybe has led to these deep tanks remaining idle. My question now comes to say, is there any other means that your ministry can assist my constituency in operationalizing these deep tanks? Maybe we should adopt a partial approach to commissioning these deep tanks. Is there any modality that your ministry can come in and assist us now that you have heard that CDF is not adequate to channel funds towards this need? I submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Fisheries and Livestock.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Member. Madam Speaker, the reason why we have these deep tanks that are non-functional is simply because community participation was not involved. Hence, a lot of our deep tanks have been just left as white elephants. Now, with our new model that we have put in place, our role as a ministry is to support our communities by providing technical support. And issues of identifying and using the resources that we have, such as Constituency Development Fund, it has to be community-driven. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Chadiza, do you have any other question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, as I've already alluded to the fact that CDF has got so many competing needs in my constituency, we as people of Chadiza still feel government can come up with a workable solution, because we have more than 150,000 heads of livestock in Chadiza, which are at risk to actually getting to be affected by tick-borne diseases. And the Honorable Minister, just think about losing more than 150,000 livestock in my constituency, just basically because we cannot have a solution to operationalizing this very important infrastructure. So is there any, I still insist, is there any other modalities that government can come in and assist us? Because CDF is not workable. We've got so many challenges with CDF in my constituency. We don't have health posts. We don't have maternity annexes for our women. We don't have so many things. Our roads are in a dilapidated state. Therefore, if we insist that we have to go community way using CDF, I don't think we're going to get somewhere. Minister, that's my appeal, that the ministry
and we submit as people of Chadiza that should just find another way of how we can be assisted to operationalize this very important infrastructure.
Sorry, the Honorable Minister of Fisheries and Livestock.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Member. I really see the serious concern with the Honorable Member, but as you have seen that the period between 2013 to 2014, this is how the previous government implemented these deep tanks. But arising from the new remodel that we have put in place, Madam Speaker, I want just to encourage the Honorable Member that as a ministry, we take priority in trying to address issues that are affecting livestock in terms of disease control, and we'll make sure that we'll sit down with our staff in the province to see how we can help the communities to prioritize on how we are going to use our resources that we have as government. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Chadiza, do engage with the ministry to see how that problem can be sorted out. I see so many indications, but we are running out of time, so we are making progress. Next question, the Honorable Member for Mbabala.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And may I also take the opportunity to welcome my brother, Honorable Karimi, to the House, since he's in the House today. Honorable Minister, you have talked about the remodeled deep tanks.
Next question, sorry. We have moved, sorry.
Oh, Madam Speaker, question number 356.
The Honorable Minister of Youth, Sport and Arts.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I understand that we lost the game, that I understand. And I understand the frustration, the disappointment by the Zambian people. I do understand. But I know, Madam Speaker, before I answer the question, I know that I should have sympathy for my friend who is Member of Parliament for Chieng, who is looking for a female sports minister. I understand our frustration. She just lost one of the by-elections in our constituency terribly. So where I was campaigning manager, so I don't expect a praises to me. Especially it was 100 against 1,000 votes. Madam Speaker, the Member of Parliament for Mbabala, Honorable Musanje, is asking my ministry whether the government has any plans to construct a community sports development center in Mbabala parliamentary constituency. And if so, when the plans will be implemented. Madam Speaker, I want to state that it's with a heavy heart that we are answering some of these questions by saying that we don't have plans. But I believe that members of Parliament will be able to agree with me that because of the resources, sometimes we are unable to put a sports infrastructure in every constituency. So, Madam Speaker, indeed, we may have a desire as government to have more sports, arts infrastructure, and youth resource centers established in all the districts, as it is enshrined in our ministry strategic plan. However, the minister has no plans of constructing community sports development in Mbavala constituency. That is in A. In B, since we don't have plans, Madam Speaker, as we have indicated in our answer in A, the ministry has no plans.
Thank you. Supplementary questions. The Honorable Member from Mbavala.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. We do appreciate the situation you find ourselves financially, based on where we are coming from. Honorable Minister, there could be an option for community small sports gyms which are supported by the community. Do you have any model or plans which can be implemented in that direction to ensure that we maintain the healthiness of our people or the wellness of our people by having small gyms that are supported by the community as a model that can be put in every ward, for example, to encourage sportsmanship amongst our citizens? I thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Youth, Sport and Arts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Member, for that follow-up question. Madam Speaker, as I indicated that we have the desire to do what the Honorable Member is suggesting, but for now, that's why we always refer to be helped from the CDF. And I want also to indicate that money which has been allocated to CDF is also government money. So we may be helped using that particular fund. And also sometimes when we find money, we can meet somewhere, Honorable Member. Madam Speaker, let me take advantage of this opportunity also to indicate that we would like to see sports infrastructure in almost every district and even in every constituency. There was a question on the floor of the House where we were discussing issue of alcohol. If we do not have sports infrastructure or sports spaces where these young people should be playing, definitely we may have such difficulties, especially in curbing issues of alcohol abuse. And I also want to indicate that we need also to look at the root cause of this problem. Yes, indeed, we have the alarming levels of alcohol abuse, including substance abuse or drug abuse. And sometimes it's because, as we always say, that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Obviously, these young people may resort to do illicit activities because of lack of sports infrastructure. And this could also be attributed to governance, the governance of this country. You are aware, Madam Speaker, that it is in this country where we saw cadres sharing sports spaces. And also, they sold some of the sports infrastructure to churches. That reduced. Yes, it's in Mbavala because we're talking about sports infrastructure.
The honorable members, the rules still apply. May the Honorable Minister continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I know the guilds are always afraid. We are trying to look at the root cause of the problem so that we don't also get into the same ditch. Let us respect and also increase on the development of sports infrastructure so that we reduce on the alarming levels that we've seen in alcohol abuse. So, Madam Speaker, indeed, as government, would like to invest much in the sports infrastructure because we believe that if we should produce quality athletes, we have no option but to make sure that we invest in sports infrastructure. So, Honorable Member, in our strategic plan, as I said yesterday, we are going to make sure that we find resources. And I should also take advantage of this opportunity, Madam Speaker, to say that indeed government has started now even attracting investment. It was yesterday that we signed an MOU with FIFA, who is injecting about $10 million into sports infrastructure, where we are going to have the technical, or what we call Center of Excellence in Chongwe, where we'll have the football house, headquarters, shifting from Lusaka to Chongwe. We'll have pitches there, we'll have gyms there, we'll have also lodges, and that will reduce on the budget that we allocate to funds. That will mean also that we may release some of the funds now so that we can put in sports infrastructure in other areas. So this is what we are trying to do, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you very much. With that elaborate answer, we make progress. Next question, the Honorable Member for Chilubi.
357, Madam Speaker. That's what you have come to.
The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Member for Chilubi, Mr. Fube, to ask the Minister of Transport and Logistics a three-part question. A, whether the government has any plans to procure an additional dredger to service the main harbour at Chilubi Island in Chilubi District. B, if so, when the plans will be implemented. And lastly, in Part C, Madam Speaker, what the estimated cost of a dredger is. In response to the question raised by the Honourable Member of Parliament for Chilubi Parliamentary Constituency, I wish to inform this august House as follows. A, the government has no immediate plans to procure an additional dredger to service the main harbour at Chilubi Island, as the current dredger in Chilubi District is sufficient to undertake all the dredging needs of the area. B, as stated above in A, government has no immediate plans to procure an additional dredger for the district. And C, Madam Speaker, the estimated cost of a dredging machine is 1.5 million kwacha. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Supplementary questions, the Honourable Member for Chilubi.
The Minister has just stated that the dredger that is there is sufficient. Currently, Madam Speaker, the dredger has been overstretched because of tear and wear. Maybe the Minister would need to know that the dredger in Chilubi, by nature of the topography of Chilubi, which is island, mainland, and swamps, meaning Chilubi has to, we need to depend on dry roads as well as water canals. When we look at such a situation, does the Minister know that actually the dredger that is there has been breaking down and it's not in a very good condition currently?
The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Member for that follow-up question. And, Madam Speaker, allow me to state that there is currently a team of officers from the Ministry carrying out transfer of dredgers to local authorities. In the future, Madam Speaker, I think this is similar to a question posed yesterday. We are devolving this function in order to be more responsive to the needs of the people, such as our people in Chilubi. And so we are in the process of making these transfers of dredgers to local authorities so that the local people are able to swiftly act whenever they are in such need. But, Madam Speaker, allow me to also shed some light on some historical perspective which impacts very, very adversely on the question that the Honourable Member asks. It is that, Madam Speaker, in 2015, the government had actually procured 27 dredgers, but that out of the 27, only 18 have been supplied. And that it is because of such that, yes, indeed, we may be facing this pressure that we may supply more dredgers to areas such as Chilubi. Allow me, Madam Speaker, to place on record that there were companies such as Hepsworth who were contracted to supply 5 dredgers, and that indeed they did meet their specific obligation to supply the 5 dredgers. There was also a company called MCD Civil, which was contracted to supply 12 dredgers, but alas, to this date, only 3 were received. And the specifications of these particular 12 dredgers was so good that had they been supplied, these were multi-tasking dredgers which could have played multiple roles in ensuring that our waterways are indeed kept clean. There was also a company called KBH, contracted to supply 10, and yes, indeed, they did perform specifically and supplied the 10. There was now, Madam Speaker, like I said, this is what qualifies the 27 that were ordered and that only 18 was supplied. Madam Speaker, this is yet another confirmation of the issues that we have to sort out as legacy issues coming from the past regime. And this is a lesson going forward that the Zambian people are watching this August House and they are hearing statistics about how taxpayers' money has just been thrown out there. We are trying every legal avenue to redress the situation by following these culprits who may have been indeed encouraged by some people in this house that we can contract and yet not fulfill such a contractual obligation in its totality. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Chilubi.
Madam Speaker, I do appreciate the Minister when he talks about legacy issues. That may be a story for another day. But I think, is the Minister aware that on Samfya Harbour, there are some machinery that can be used in Chilubi in terms of weeding and creating water canals that are just there, dormant, which some of them have not been used, but they have just stationed there. And I think the Minister do remember that at some point I did appreciate him. I did approach him, sorry, on that particular issue. Is it, can the Minister permit that Chilubi, Lunga and Samfya can start using those dredgers which, instead of them going into waste, because they are already procured and they are just there and they are not being used? can the ministry permit Chirubi, Samfi and Lunga to be using those dredgers?
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
The honourable member must be alive to legal implications of contractual obligations. I think that the honourable member is referring to those 3 brand new dredgers sitting in the area that you refer to, but that there were supposed to have been 12. We cannot, because of legal implications, begin to now use those particular dredgers, because that has become a matter for legal redress. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. We make progress. Next question, the Honorable Member for Chama North. Honorable Member for Chama North. The Honorable Member for Chama North is not in the House. The question lapses in accordance with our standing orders. The next question, the Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 359.
The Honorable Acting Minister of Agriculture. The Honorable Acting Minister for Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Member of Kalabo Central is asking the Minister of Agriculture a question in 2 parts. In A, whether the government has any plans to revamp agriculture training centers countrywide. B, if so, when the plans will be implemented. Madam Speaker, our response is as follows. In A, the New Dawn government has prioritized agriculture as one of the key sectors for employment, wealth creation, as well as food security. In order to achieve this objective, well-trained and skilled human resources are required. Hence, government has plans to revamp agricultural training centers countrywide as part of the broader strategy for agricultural transformation. In B, revamping agricultural training center is an ongoing process. However, government plans to scale up the program commencing this year. In addition, government is engaging cooperating partners to assist in the revamping of agriculture training centers. For example, the government is grateful to German government through GIZ, who have recently rehabilitated the Katete Farming Training Center in Eastern Province. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary questions. The Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Madam Speaker, like the question is implying, in revamping, meaning it's almost idling. Other than the refurbishment or renovations in terms of infrastructure, what are the measures in terms of educating the farmers or sensitizing the farmers to enhance techniques and methods of agriculture, especially in crop production, animal production? What immediate measures has the government put in place? Thank you.
The Honorable Acting Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, for that follow-up questions. Indeed, Madam Speaker, the government is using the same centers, like I stated in my first answer, is first of all to train our people, our farmers in these centers, and this has been enhanced. As we are talking now, Madam Speaker, we are distributing equipment such as tractors, planters, cultivators to these centers, where these centers becomes the center of excellence
where our farmers can learn new techniques and new ideas that are coming through mechanization. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kawata.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, we visited Mochipapa, the Committee on Agriculture, and that training institution, if you were to look at it, it's actually a sorry sight. You look at the infrastructure that is there, it's horrible. You look at even the facility itself, it looks like it was built way back in 1906. I don't know what plans the ministry has to revamp such infrastructures within those training centers. Is it possible that your ministry can give a time frame on when exactly this institution will be actually worked on?
Thank you. The Honorable Acting Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Member, for that question. Madam Speaker, Mochipapa is one of those centers that I've just talked about, because these are the centers that we feel can be revamped and turned into center of excellence, where our farmers can benefit by getting new ideas. And indeed, we are aware as government that most of our centers across the country are in bad shape. Hence, there's progress which is going on in terms of rehabilitating these centers so that they can benefit our farmers. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Nalolo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I'd like to thank the Minister and the Honorable Member for Kalabo who's asked this very important question. Madam Speaker, most governments have been rhetorical about diversification on the dependence of the economy from mining to agriculture. I don't know how the Minister wants to achieve irrigation systems, particularly in the Western Province picture, where people don't know any agriculture aside from rice. So we need crop diversification. And mostly, Madam Speaker, when you talk about agriculture in Zambia, you're talking about maize. So we would like also to implore the Minister, take this very serious. When are you starting on a serious note to revamp these agriculture centers? Because it is a serious issue with drought. People need to have crop diversification on drought-resistant crops. So even these centers of excellence, without proper training, we cannot achieve crop diversification. So when are you planning to revamp this? Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Acting Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Honorable Member. That's a very serious concern. And indeed, like I stated in my first two responses in A and B, that this government takes agriculture as a priority because we know what it can do for our nation. And this is the more reason why I have stated that as we are talking now, the government has started trying to revamp these centers by demonstrating, distributing this equipment that have been procured to these centers. And it's a process that we have just started this year, and it's an ongoing program to see to it that these centers benefits our farmers. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. Apologies, Honorable Member for Nyimba. We need to make progress. The next question, the Honorable Member for Kanchivia. The Honorable Member for Kanchivia, is he joining us virtually? If he is not there, then the question lapses in accordance with our standing orders. We make progress. Notes of motion, the Honorable Member for Kafue. The Honorable Member for Kafue was in just now. The vice for the committee. Who is the vice chairperson?
Which committee is that?
Sorry, I don't. Honorable members, any member that can stand in for the... Is it honorable member for Chilubi? Okay. It's okay. The honorable member for Chilubi, you want to stand in?
Madam Speaker, I'm supposed to be the seconder, but I can stand in.
It's okay. Yes.
Okay. Then you can go ahead. As the time is 10:40 hours, I suspend business for 20 minutes for a health break.
You are still watching Parliament television, and the House has gone on a 20 minutes health break. The House was just about actually to start considering a motion on the Committee on National Guidance and Gender Matters. So this is what will be the first item when they resume sitting at 11 hours. And so far, a number of items have been considered on the floor from the time the House started sitting at 09 hours.
Exactly, Pauline. Madam Speaker did make an announcement in which she informed the House that she had received communication to the effect that in the absence of her Honour, the Vice President, who is attending to other government business, the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security, Honourable Jack J. Mwimbu, MP, has been appointed acting leader of government business in the House from today, 14th June 2024, until further notice. And we must make mention that so far the House has already considered 5 questions for oral answer under Standing Order 80. And just now, we do take a break. We'll join you on the other side.
My name is Christopher Kangombe, Member of Parliament for the good people of Kamfinsa constituency. I was born in Kitwe. I basically did all my education in Kitwe. Started my primary school in where I am today at Justin Kawe Basic School in Indeke. Went to Kitwe Boys Secondary School in Kitwe, and later on I pursued a degree in electrical mechanical engineering, where I graduated at CBU. I think should have been 2009 thereabout. At that time I was already doing civic work. I was already an elected councillor in an area called Riverside in Kitwe. And of course later on I was privileged to have been given an opportunity by the people of Kitwe to work as mayor of the city in between 2016 and 2021. Then of course last year I got an opportunity to represent the community where I was raised, where I grew up, which is Kamfinsa constituency. I am married. I'm a father of 3 children. I think the eldest must be 10. Yes, 10. The second born is 8 and the last one is 5. Yeah, professionally I've worked for Mopani Copper Mines. I used to work as an assistant engineer there. I worked for Luansha Copper Mines, and before going full-time into civic work and political work, I worked for a company called Atlas Copco, where I was selling mining equipment. So I happen to have an understanding of what happens in the private sector. I also have an understanding of what happens in governance. So it's been a great honor reaching this stage where now I can come to Parliament and come and not only represent the people of Kamfinsa, but also try and urge government. You know, our role as parliamentarians is to provide oversight. I love watching football. If I was not an engineer, I think I would have been a very good football player. I read a lot. It's good to read. As a leader, you have to read, because when you are reading, you tend to understand what is happening globally, you tend to understand history, and you tend to understand so many different aspects. Kamfinsa constituency is the first constituency as you enter Kitwe. So on your right, where the boundary with Ndola ends, Kamfinsa starts. So the entire farm block, where the prison is, you go further with the boundary with, is it Mufulira, Ndola Road, that boundary, that is the outer boundary. You come to Ndeke, Kitwe, Mulenga compound, Mkuba na Twange, that is the geographical description of Kamfinsa. Of course, we have challenges in the constituency. We have challenges of water. I was raising an issue earlier with our Honour the Vice President, asking government to work on the water supply network in the constituency. We did start a project, I think in 2019, under Nkana Water and Sewerage, but the project could not proceed because a few things had to be changed. So we have challenges of water. We of course have challenges of unemployment, just like any other constituency. And with more young people finishing school, I think it will continue to pose as a challenge. And I'm hoping that we could find solutions here and also in the constituency, and of course other stakeholders. We are predominantly an agriculture economy. Most people do agriculture, but majority of them on the urban side of the constituency do trading. Some of them work in the mines. So what is happening on the copper belt, Mopani operations, KCM operations do affect directly our people in the constituency. And of course we have a lot of people in the informal sector, those that go into Sokone market to sell their commodities. So those are some of the key players in the constituency. And of course I want to thank the clergy in the constituency, because they've helped us whenever we want to sensitize the public about things like constituency development fund. We go through churches, we inform the churches, we ask them, can we do an announcement? And once we do that, the information goes out there, which is very useful. And I think that we have local strategies on how we are coping with some of these challenges, but obviously ultimately we need central government support. We've started with basic infrastructure. We need to educate as many people in the constituency. I would want the constituency to produce more engineers. I want the constituency to produce more doctors, more teachers, more journalists, people that can come and contribute to the economy of our country. So of course our primary objective is to provide health infrastructure and also provide educational infrastructure. We have a hospital, what used to be a clinic, a Ndeke Village clinic in Ndeke Village, that we are now upgrading. The previous government did commence the upgrading works. We have a maternity wing now, and now we want to add a mortuary, a theatre and other things, so that that health facility in Ndeke Village could cater for that catchment area. We also want to upgrade Zamtan clinic also into a facility with support infrastructure. We also want to upgrade primary schools into secondary schools, so that when children finish grade 7, they quickly go into grade 8, 9 up to grade 12. So part of the constituency development fund, we have channeled it towards adding 4 more classes. We want to finish classes at Wesley Nyerenda. We want to finish 3 classes at Mulenga Primary. We want to do the same in all the other schools that we have in the constituency, so that we shorten the distances. We don't want a challenge where when someone finishes their grade 7, they have to walk a long distance. That's one of the strategies we are using. We are also doing bridges. We want people to be able to connect, and that is why earlier this week I did raise an issue with the Minister of Infrastructure that our farmers need to have their bridges worked on, so that they can transport their farm produce, so that they can transport their farm inputs, and so that we can have the economic activity happening in the farm block of the constituency. So it's education, health, general infrastructure like bridges. We also have roadworks that we want to work on, and we have allocated from the constituency development funds for this year about 600,000 kwacha, which will go towards fuel for the council to grade our roads. It's a wide scope of things that we want to do. But ultimately, I want us to simplify the empowerment programs. The way the empowerment programs have been designed, I feel will not yield the right results. The issue of cooperatives, we've had challenges. People form cooperatives, they get the money, they have challenges starting a business, yet they asked for money to start a business. So I did ask our colleagues in central government if we can redesign empowerment programs. So that is on my agenda for this year. Before 2022 comes to an end, we should be able to say we think we can do empowerment programs in this fashion. And I think that that is some of the things that we are working on. So pretty much it's health, education, the basic things that everyone talks about, but localized to the needs of the people in Kamfinsa. The residents of Kamfinsa, of course, gave me an opportunity to come here and speak for them, and I think that whenever we ask questions in Parliament, mostly it is issues affecting our young people, issues affecting the constituency, issues affecting Mulenga compound. I would want to assure them that it may not be done, everything may not be done in 5 years, but we are going to lay the foundation and we are going to demonstrate that some of the priorities have been attended to. We are going to ensure that educational infrastructure, the schools out there are worked on. We are going to ensure that we provide the necessary blueprint for working on roads. Those are our priorities, because if we do those things, I think that the economy of the constituency will be active. I also want to assure the residents that the challenges of water will continue to be presented to Parliament, because if I don't speak, I think that government may not give those issues the right amount of attention. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have been elected Member of Parliament. It's been a great journey so far, and I want it to be a leadership that represents the needs of our people.
My name is Engineer Jonathan Daka. I'm 46 years old, of course married with 4 beautiful children, or boys. I went to Chipata for my entire primary school, even secondary school. Thereafter I went to the University of Zambia in 1995, where I graduated with a Bachelor's of Engineering in civil engineering in 2002, after staying there for an extended time of 7 years. That's my basic qualification. I'm an engineer by profession. My constituency is located on the southeast part of Zambia, bordering with Mozambique. This constituency is a rural constituency with the 20 wards, and this constituency being a border constituency, you know, this is a constituency which actually houses the Chanida border, which is the shortest border to the sea coast for the country. Therefore, much of the, and it's proud of its imports of fuel, because about 70% of the fuel that we use as a country actually passes through this very important border. And this constituency, as I've already said, is a rural constituency whose major economic activities is farming, just like most rural constituencies. But for Chadiza is a food basket for Eastern Province. It's proud of a lot of crops that our farmers grow in Chadiza, ranging from maize, groundnuts, and even cash crops like cotton and tobacco. Just like any other rural constituency, Chadiza faces a lot of challenges. This constituency is one of the most backwards constituency as it lacks most of the basic infrastructure. Chadiza basically is one of the poorest constituencies. So all the basic structure, the basic infrastructure is lacking in Chadiza, and even poverty levels are very high. My developmental agenda, as I've already said, is to transform this constituency. I've told you it's lacking in most of the basic infrastructure, but first of all, therefore, should be to open up this constituency on the issues to do with the internal roads, these small roads first of all, and then also open it up to the other parts of the country. I mean, we need to connect Chadiza to the rest of the country through a bituminous standard road, because Chadiza is one of the few constituencies or districts which has never actually been connected to the rest of the country through a third road. Therefore, one of my first agenda is to ensure that we connect Chadiza to the rest of the country through a bituminous standard road, besides those of the internal roads. It's my belief that after doing that, actually will trigger the other economic activities which are lacking in the district. So my agenda will start with the roads, and then we deal with these other, because almost all these other need areas are lacking. In education, we are backwards. Water and sanitation, we are backwards. Issues to do with dealing with poverty is backwards, and you know, we have kids and women being the most affected in this constituency. My word to the people of Chadiza is that of unity. I've already said this constituency is a very vast constituency with 20 wards. Therefore, we should unite. The constituency is like that because I believe that there's never been unity in the constituency. There's too much pulling apart, you know, pulling down, pulling apart. So my word to my electorate is that let's unite in the interest of developing our constituency. Because if you are divided, actually we are not going to achieve anything. So let's unite, be it women, youths, chiefs, and everyone. Let's unite for a common cause, which is in the name of bringing development to our constituency. That's the way. They should believe in their leader, and they should give him all the support. The problem which is there, looking at what is happening, is that it cannot be a problem to do with leadership now. I believe that the right leadership now has been given to the people of Chadiza. All they need to do now is to lag behind their leader, give him all the moral support so that he can bring the much needed development that people have always wanted to come to the constituency.
In a world where judgment is constant and opinions are plenty, I face the critics head on.
And we're sitting down with a personality who is also a producer and entrepreneur. Her name is Mutale Mwanza.
I am Mutale Mwanza. I stand tall and I refuse to let the chaos of life break my spirit.
You know what?
To shutting down the haters.
Can you say that?
I am multiple dating. The future is exciting as I blaze a trail of success, proving that every challenge is just another opportunity for greatness as I build my legacy.
I'll be going to Malawi.
What is happening with this guy group?
Mutale Mwanza Unscripted, Season 2.
Welcome back, and thank you for still watching Parliament Television. Shortly we will be able to cross over for the live parliamentary proceedings. That's after the 20 minutes break, and we do expect the House to consider the report of the Committee on National Guidance and Gender Matters. This report is expected to be to be moved by Ms. Miriam Chonya, who is Kafue Member of Parliament, urging that this House adopts the report of the Committee on National Guidance and Gender Matters on the review of the gender-based violence responses and programming in Zambia vis-a-vis establishment of victims' shelters, fast-track courts, and the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Fund for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 12th June 2024.
And still to come, we expect to have resumption for consideration of question number 342, which was on the order paper for 11th June 2024, and this question was posed by Mr. Jonathan Daka, Chadiza Member of Parliament, and he directed his question to the Minister of Green Economy and Environment on what measures the government is implementing to curb deforestation countrywide and how much money was allocated to control the vice as of November 2023, and whether there are any policies in place to control the cultivation and curing of Virginia tobacco, which is one of the major contributors of deforestation, and if there are no such policies, why?
We also expect resumption of debate on the report of the Committee on National Security and Foreign Affairs on the state of infrastructure at borders and ports at entry points into the country, and we do expect Mr. Alex Katakwe, who is Solwezi Member of Parliament, to continue with debate. But just now we take you to the floor of the House.
Well, the bells are still ringing, meaning that a quorum has not been formed yet in the House. It is a requirement that 1/3 of the members should be present for business to continue. So the bells are ringing for the members of Parliament to come back to the House after the break.
Let's just make mention that we expect the House to consider a motion that will be moved by Ms. Miriam Chonya, who is Kafue Member of Parliament, urging that this House adopts the report of the Committee on National Guidance and Gender Matters on the review of the gender-based violence responses and programming in Zambia vis-a-vis establishment of victims' shelters, fast-track courts, and the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Fund for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 12th June 2024.
Well, that is business still expected to be considered on the floor of the House as soon as the House resumes sitting, which will be shortly when a quorum is formed. And the House has so far considered 5 of the 7 questions that were considered on the floor, that were on the order paper for today. 2 of them lapsed due to the fact that the honorable members who were supposed to pose these questions were not in the House at the time the questions were ready for consideration. And there was also one question that was considered, and this was a question for urgent nature considered under Standing Order 82. And also one question for written answer has been considered, and this is what has been considered on the floor of the House so far from the time the House started sitting.
And earlier on, Madam Speaker did make an announcement in which she informed the House that she had received communication to the effect that in the absence of Her Honor the Vice President, who is attending to other government business, the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security, Honorable Jack Wimble, MP, has been appointed acting leader of government business in the House from today, 14th June 2024, until further notice. The bells are still ringing. It is a requirement that 1/3 of members of parliament need to be present for any business to be transacted on the floor of the House. So once a quorum is present, business of the House will resume.
Yes, Taza, so we look at some of the questions that have lapsed. We had a question from Member of Parliament for Chairman North, Mr. Yotam Chalo, and this question was supposed to be directed to the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security, whether government has any plans to construct border posts at the following crossing points between Zambia and Malawi to prevent smuggling, and that was Kanyelele Hebe, Mbala Chanda Chama, and if so, when the plans will be implemented, and if there are no plans, why? So
when business was suspended, the House was about to start considering the motion moved by the Honourable Member for Kafue, that this House adopts a report of the Committee on National Guidance and Gender Matters on the review of the gender-based violence responses and programming in Zambia, vis-à-vis establishment of victims' shelters, fast-track courts, and the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Fund, for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 12th June 2024. May the Honourable Mover continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. But before I move this motion, allow me to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to thank the entire management of the National Assembly of Zambia and the members, the honorable members, both on the left and the right, for mourning with us and for the support, that you rendered during the bereavement that we had as a family, in which we lost a dear son. Now, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House do adopt the report of the Committee on National Guidance, Gender Matters for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on 12th June 2024. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with its terms of reference set out in the Standing Orders of the National Assembly of Zambia, Standing Orders 2024, the committee reviewed the gender-based violence response and programming in Zambia vis-à-vis establishment of victims' shelters, fast-track courts, and implementation of the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Fund. Mr. Speaker, it is my belief that my colleagues...
Honourable Member, you should have introduced and then I should have asked, but you went straight. We bear with you. You are just coming from a funeral.
I was a little confused because I wasn't called upon also, so that's how I thought that had happened, and I just went straight.
No, the problem was that you were not in the House at the time Honourable Fube was doing the justice. Okay. So you just jumped on the bandwagon. However, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr.
Introduce
Speaker.
the motion and then we restart it.
Okay. So how does the introduction? Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House do adopt the report of the Committee on National Guidance and Gender Matters for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on 12th June 2024.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
The motion is seconded by the Honourable Member for Chiluvi. May the mover proceed.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I was saying that it is my belief that my colleagues have read through the committee's report. I will therefore only highlight a few concerns that the committee encountered. The committee is concerned that as a sustainable mechanism for financing and supporting interventions to victims, the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Fund, as espoused in Part 6 of the Anti-GBV Act number 1 of 2011, has not been fully implemented due to lack of guidelines. The committee recommends that the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services, under the leadership of our mother, as a responsible ministry for the development of the said guidelines, should expedite the process to ensure that there is a framework with which the fund can be instituted and administered. Mr. Speaker, the committee acknowledges that the provision of quick and effective disposal of gender-based violence cases is a fundamental response intervention in the fight against the scourge. The committee notes, however, that as we speak, only 6 fast tracks in 6 provinces exist. One of the findings of the committee on its local tour is that the Copperbelt province only has 1 fast-track court against 4 magistrate courts dealing with GBV matters. Further, the committee learned that despite such a huge jurisdiction, there is no transport to take victims to the court. In this regard, the committee recommends that the government should prioritize the rollout of fast-track courts in all the 116 districts to expedite the disposal of cases and reduce the high rate of withdrawal of the cases by the victims. Mr. Speaker, you may be aware that safe houses provide restorative services as well as safety for victims of GBV. They are therefore essential for a survivor who is awaiting court process. Also, it is important that the victim is not in the same space as the perpetrator. The committee, Mr. Speaker, is concerned that there are only 7 government-run safe houses countrywide. The committee therefore recommends that a deliberate policy should be put in place to ensure that safe houses are constructed in all districts in the country to provide basic material support and offer counseling and rehabilitation services, as well as securing the physical safety of victims. Further, budgetary support should be provided for the maintenance of the safe houses that will be established. I should point out, Mr. Speaker, that when we visited the Chipata safe house, we were glad actually to learn that under this new Dawn government, there had been an improvement, an increase in the amount of money that was being added to the safe houses, and that these same increased funds were now being disbursed on a monthly basis, unlike what used to happen in the past. So with this commitment, we believe that indeed what the committee here is proposing is attainable. Mr. Speaker, in the process of learning best practices and to share experiences with other jurisdictions, the committee visited the Republic of Rwanda. The committee learned that that country has developed to offer holistic support for victims of GBV and child abuse through what they call Isange one-stop centers. Isange simply means feel at home, and this is a homegrown solution in Rwanda to respond to GBV. At the time that the committee was in Rwanda, there were 48 centers providing 7 days a week, multidisciplinary and free holistic services. These services included investigations, medical treatment, medical legal examinations, psychological support, and temporal shelter. I'm stressing the 48 centers here established countrywide compared to only 7 in our country, Zambia. So yesterday, I didn't agree with a colleague who was saying we travel outside the country, maybe to some countries that are even smaller than our own country, to go and learn. Here is Rwanda. I think in terms of geographical space, Zambia is far much bigger. And as Zambia, we are even a bigger and longer democracy. So we can still learn. It's not about the size, but it's about what they have put in place. This is a progressive model which Zambia should emulate. Government should establish and spread out similar one-stop centers for enhanced facilitation and provision of this coordinated and sustainable package of response services at national and sub-national levels. Of course, Mr. Speaker, as you sent us with very specific objectives, there were also other lessons, that we learned in Uganda, which I thought I would take advantage, as I present this report, to just echo how that country is committed, to securing their peace so that they do not degenerate into the genocide. So I was very sad. Coincidentally, it was when we were coming back from Rwanda that we had a lot of talk about tribe and all that unpleasant debate that emerged in the nation. I wanted just to encourage us, ourselves as leaders, that we are the glue that should hold this country together so that we do not experience what others have experienced before. The issues of gender and the place of women in Rwanda is something that as Zambia we have a lot to learn from. Otherwise, we may be also exposing our women to psychological violence that they cannot be given an equal opportunity as the men in this country. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, allow me by stating that the anti-trafficking committee, which is provided under our GBV, has also not yet been established, and we recommend that government establishment. Mr. Speaker, the committee wishes to express its gratitude to you and the Clerk of the National Assembly and all the witnesses and stakeholders that appeared before the committee to facilitate its work. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chirubi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion to adopt the report on the Committee of the National Guidance and Gender Matters for the third session of the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, as I would like to appreciate the motion helped removed by the Vice Chair of our committee, I would like to focus much on the issues that we were reviewing, that is gender-based programming response, especially with a view of fast-track courts, the victim shelter, and the funding surrounding gender-based violence. Mr. Speaker, according to the Zambia Demographic Health Survey of 2018, at least 36% of women have experienced physical violence. But when we look at the issue of gender-based violence, it's a cross-cutting issue, Mr. Speaker, that among other things include sexual violence. Mr. Speaker, can I be protected from the noise coming from there? I will not concentrate, especially the Mines Minister. Mr. Speaker, when we look at the cross-cutting issues that involve gender, we are looking at now the front of child marriages, we are looking at sexual violence, we are looking at emotional violence and economic deprivation. Mr. Speaker, when we look at these and we factor in the three pillars that were picked, that's the fast-track court and the issue of shelters that are supposed to shelter the victims and the funding, you realize, Mr. Speaker, that there is need to attend to legislative and policy framework. And this legislative and policy framework should have a trickle-down effect on the community. And I think when you look at that, the move of the motion did underscore the need that we have few shelters that are accommodating the victims, and the fast-track courts are such a challenge. To add on, we are having problems with the gender-based violence funding structure, especially that we learned from different stakeholders, both state actors and non-state actors, that there are gaps in terms of guidelines that lead to that. But Mr. Speaker, I want to also to underscore that the issue of gender-based violence much is driven by patriarchal harmful practices. When we look at the society structure, which, among other things, disadvantages especially the women because of social, cultural, and economic suppression that is driven mainly by patriarchal structure, which in this case causes poverty and vulnerability to women. Mr. Speaker, there is need that we adopt some of the things that are copied from the other countries as best practices. In this case, I have in mind the Rwanda Bureau of Investigations, which is a good model in looking at how they are tackling the issues of gender-based violence, especially that they have taken a legal front in terms of investigating the gender-based violence. You find that even doctors that are managing that particular institution have done and are linked to medical law in understanding the issues and challenges and consequences surrounding gender-based violence. Mr. Speaker, GBV requires a comprehensive strategy that encompasses, among other things, legislative reform as well as policy reform. And in this case, Mr. Speaker, we are talking about the environment of the policy and as well as the environment of our laws. In looking at our Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act, there are gaps. And there are gaps because it's not fitting into the fiscal, it hasn't got the structures. As you may know, Mr. Speaker, that the Ministry of Gender was abandoned, was abolished, and I think some of the stakeholders that are submitted to that effect are calling for establishment of that particular ministry, that it may be helpful. Instead of having a department, we need to elevate the matters of gender to a ministry portfolio that can be helpful to doing, tackling matters of GBV. Mr. Speaker, there is also need that when we look at the three factors that we are looking at, which is the fast-track courts, when you look at the issue of victims, shelters, and GB funding, there is no proper coordination in that you find that, for instance, government has got fewer shelters as opposed to the shelters that the non-state actors are managing. And this calls for a gender-sensitive budgeting, which means that we need to mainstream our budgeting, we need to mainstream gender into the budgeting system so that we have the Ministry of Social responding to that, the Ministry of Local Government responding to that, infrastructure responding to that, and many other. What this means is that at the end of the day, we will have what is seen as a weaker sex to be empowered because we are going to have a face that appreciates gender. The mainstreaming further, Mr. Speaker, should tackle issues of prevention and a response mechanism that is quite robust, which should tackle, among other things, the prevention of the occurrence of gender-based violence, which in my opening remarks I did mention that among them are physical, sexual, emotional, and economic deprivation of the victims. And in this case, there is need that we put on the center of this awareness to the community, bringing on board the issues that are to do with tradition and culture, and this means that our traditional leaders become key in reaching out to the people, because many of the issues that come out as a result of gender-based violence are mainly hidden in the issues of culture and and such values, meaning that the rural communities are supposed to take center stage, because there is awareness in the urban and peri-urban communities, but the rural communities have to take center stage. This means that institutions like the House of Chiefs have to come on board and make sure that they take their role, and possibly that would channel the awareness to and spread throughout the country. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I submit that I hand here so that other people can contribute.
Any further debate? The Honourable Member for Zambia East.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to this motion, which is very progressive in as far as our lives in this country are concerned. Indeed, the family forms one of the most important units of our communities. And family itself is regulated by laws. And having gender issues discussed in this manner strengthens the family. That's why family as itself is actually a branch of law that is studied and is provided for by many statutes. Talking about the report of your committee, Mr. Speaker, it is speaking to the progress that we have made in coming up with measures to deal with the issue of gender-based violence. And while seated here, as the mover of the motion was speaking, I was chewing the cud to try and see really how much progress we have made towards this. And I listened very attentively to her submission, including the submission of the seconder of the motion. But then it gave me also space to recap how much progress we have made as a country. To start with, as a country, we have provided for legal systems. A High Court, CAP 27 of the laws of Zambia recognizes the family. And the Amendment Act number 2 of the Constitution 2016 actually provided for a family court under the High Court, where disputes of the family could easily be resolved. And those are the milestones we are making. And we also have the Matrimonial Causes Act number 20 of 2007, which I've seen, I think, from the communique, which was made by the Minister of Information, might be coming here for amendments. And these are progressive measures, all aimed at ensuring that the family is staying in harmony. Gender-based violence emanates from usually families. That's why I have taken time to explain these few things about family. And disputes come out of these families. And usually the weaker part is the women, who are usually the victims of the gender-based violence. And there are laws in place to protect these, our weaker colleagues in society. And where I've seen it work very well, although it must be done with caution, in countries like South Africa, where the laws, the gender-based violence laws or the gender laws are very strict, it has turned out to be a situation where women are more powerful than the men. The economy there is run by women, actually. So we need to strike a balance to ensure that the men are not left behind. But talking about gender-based violence, the fast-track courts, yes, indeed, they are doing a lot. But you see, some of these cases which are heard in these courts, if they are in an open court, because gender-based violence issues tend to be sometimes embarrassing, we end up not bringing out the real issues. So I would employ a deliberate policy where GBV cases could maybe be heard in camera. Some of them, especially those sensitive ones, so that the parties that may feel embarrassed to bring out certain things can actually freely speak and give evidence which will add value to the judgment. And
talking about our own parliament here, as you can see, in terms of numbers, it's quite a big imbalance in terms of men versus women. It's all coming from families and the participation of women in governance. So if we could improve it, if it's through the Constitution, well and good. If it's through other deliberate policies, well and good, so that women can participate in policy making and also in fostering these gender issues. But I would implore my colleagues, the men, to be also very, very sensitive to these issues where the weaker vessel is encouraged to participate most times. We can take it back to even our own CDF committees and many other things where we have influence to ensure that women participate. But the issue is the violence comes because of disunity in the family, and the topic which we were just discussing not too long ago, I think a question which was on the floor of the House, where there was abuse of substance. And in this case in particular, it was alcohol abuse. It's one of the avenues which actually causes this gender-based violence, especially in the rural areas, in villages, where there is little control and policing. It's a real issue. So in my opinion, I think as a government, we need to bring in policies to actually scale up advocacy to ensure that abuse of substance and also abuse of the weaker people in society, the women, is curtailed, especially in the rural areas. And forced marriages, issues to do with forced marriages because of culture and so on. But there are players out there who are participating in this, and usually it's NGOs. I've not seen much of our government participating in this, and I can see the Minister of Community Development and Social Services is looking at me here. Madam, it is one issue that we need to take seriously, probably in your ministry, where in the communities we put in deliberate policies to sensitize the communities in terms of the use of substances like beer and so on, and issues to do with forced marriages and also child marriages, which are a problem. And these are the vices that lead to gender-based violence. So the more we put in better policies to help out curtail these bad vices, the more milestones we make towards progress against gender-based violence. I thought I could contribute in this way to just sensitize ourselves on this very important motion, which is of concern, and it speaks to the very, very important smallest unit of the community, which is the family. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Kasama Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to thank the mover and the seconder for this progressive motion. Mr. Speaker, according to Zambia Police Victim Support Unit statistics of 2021, there was 20,540 cases that were reported. In 2022, there was 33,536 cases. These figures, Mr. Speaker, are understated. A lot of victims are not captured, especially in the rural areas. When you look at the rural areas, there is no victim support unit structures, neither do they have police posts where they can report most of these matters. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to urge that community crime prevention units, popularly known as CCPU, that are mostly used in the rural setup, to be trained and sensitized so that they can offer victims a refuge from abusive environments. Mr. Speaker, the issue of fast-track courts. Currently, the country has 6 fast-track courts, and I wish to report to this House that Kasama District now has a fast-track court with support from the UNDP and the judiciary. The court was commissioned on the 30th of May, 2024. The country went to record 42,900 GBV cases in 2023, which is a major increase from what we saw in 2022, 33,536. Mr. Speaker, opening of courts will help mitigate the rising number of GBV cases indeed. But yet again, how many victims are able to access these courts? When you look at the rural setup, Mr. Speaker, probably not even transport to reach the district where the fast-track court is. Success of the fast-track courts, Mr. Speaker, is also highly dependent on professional and dedicated judicial staff. There is need to ensure that the judiciary has the necessary support staff in order to have the fast-track court work in accordance with its mandate. Swift justice serves as a deterrent to potential offenders and reinforces society condemnation of GBV. So it is therefore very important that the fast-track courts, Mr. Speaker, go a long way, especially for those in the rural areas who have no support. Mr. Speaker, most of the reports are coming from Lusaka as well as the Copper Belt, and most of these are urban setups. So rural areas need education campaigns and community outreach programs so that they are well informed about fast-track courts. Mr. Speaker, having the fast-track courts, quite a number of victims do not even know about them. The need for sensitization and education is very, very important so that they are also able to access and these courts are efficient. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I feel it is necessary to create a comprehensive and effective GBV response framework that would encompass both urban and rural communities so that the system is equalized. Those that are in the rural areas are mostly very, very marginalized and are not able to get access to victim support units or any form of reporting structure. Most of these cases end up at the village headman's house, and in most cases, when we look at our patriarchal society, it is always the women that remain at fault. Currently, 1 in 3 women is a victim of GBV, and 1 in 4 men. I also wish to say that men are not exempt from GBV, so it is very, very important that we all put in concerted effort to ensure that men, women, and children are free from the vice and the perpetrators are brought to book as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, I support the motion. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kaflafuta.
The privilege is mine, Mr. Speaker, to have this opportunity to add the voice of the people of Kaflafuta, the motion on the floor. Let me start by declaring that I completely support the report that has been ably moved and seconded. But I wish to state from the onset that I'll take a complete different angle from maybe a few things that have already been brought to the floor. And this really has to do with maybe some of it with how I was brought up in my father's house. Mr. Speaker, I feel that we need to deal with this matter in a very, very practical way for us to be able to arrest GBV if we are going to do so as a nation, and not necessarily by looking at what is being done elsewhere, because we are Zambians with different culture and so on. There are some jurisdictions that don't do what we do in practice as Zambians. Therefore, such jurisdictions may not be the best to benchmark with. I strongly wish to add to what the honorable member from Zambezi East alluded to, Mr. Speaker. I think that gender-based violence is not going to be adequately attacked if we do not address the family setups. I note that as Zambians, we are slowly but sure drifting from our culture and from what we are supposed to be as Zambians. People that are brought up in homes where there is respect. I'll give you an example, Mr. Speaker. There were so many of us in my family, the brothers and sisters, but there were also cousins who were brought in the family and so on. And the setup was when food is set, the younger one cannot start eating before the oldest comes. I'm sure those that were brought up in my generation will agree to that fact. To the fact that we understood hierarchy and we understood what respect is. Whereas if you do something wrong, my father will always look at who is older and who is younger, then help you settle that matter. You raise an issue with your sister. I don't ever remember having a physical fight with any of my sisters because my father taught me that you are a boy to protect your sister. Your sister is not anybody you can fight with. And it appears to me that those that learned to protect their sisters will find it difficult to be violent to their girlfriends, partners, or wives. So I was brought up in a manner where I always believed that I am going to protect my sisters, whatever happens. Allow me to use this term. I know it's not parliamentarian. If there was any guy coming to chase after my sister, I would stand up and want to know exactly who is this guy. I would size him up. Can he look after my sister and so on? So I think that instead of us doing what we are not supposed to be doing, we need to bring discipline back. Let us, those of us that are parents, bring back discipline to our homes. Because if we are going to do it via textbook, that is not going to help us and it's not going to last. There are many times that I've met with people that you can clearly tell that this person does not know discipline and probably he never knew discipline while they were growing up, because sometimes you'll be driving and they do something that is completely wrong. Instead of apologizing, they'll start shouting at you and so on. And sometimes they won't even look at the age to see this man that I'm talking to in this manner. Is he my age mate? Is he someone that is of my father's age, and so on and so forth? So I think that as Zambians, as long as we keep on going around this matter and with not bringing discipline back to our homes, I think we're going to miss the point. So family is the key. They say that charity begins at home. We're not going to expect someone to behave properly in society when they are coming from a disorderly or a dysfunctional family. So with this, in my few words, Mr. Speaker, I totally agree and support the report, but with an emphasis that we need to get back to family setups where we can teach our children, teach our grandchildren how to behave in our own homes. Otherwise, if we don't teach them how to behave in our own homes, we leave it to the school teachers, we leave it to the Sunday school teachers. This is not going to help. A woman is a gem of God's creation. That's why after creating everything else, God felt that my work is not complete until I bring up a woman. So someone that understands the value of a woman in a family setup or the value of a brother or whatever is not going to engage in such vices. So I would like to throw back the responsibility of stopping gender-based violence back to the family and not to the textbook. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, I totally support the report. I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Lufu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. May I first thank the mover and the seconder in the manner in which they've moved the motion. Mr. Speaker, it's so saddening when you go to page 3. You see the increase, the steady increase in the cases year by year from 2011 to 2023. And this is even more alarming, most especially when we see that from the time the New Dawn government came into government, they've tried to make sure that they address most of the issues, some of the issues that are indicated here to have been the causes. If you check the Ministry of Community Development, this time when I go into my constituents, I'm able to find even those small mothers getting at least some money per month, which is helping in reducing the poverty and helping these young mothers at least to find something, to do something for themselves, which is very good. But to find that in 2023, actually, it even recorded the highest number of cases. This is really alarming, and we need to get back to the drawing board and be able to see where should we concentrate in order for us to deal with these issues. Because if the government is trying so hard and we find these issues are going up, it means there is somewhere where we need to do something that we've not done before. And when I looked at this report, I picked on the few. The first one I want to talk about is when you talk about, in the report, there is poverty and vulnerability. When you look at this, I think we need also to be careful for now we need to define this. Because what is there now, like other members of parliament have alluded to, in families, because we've not inculcated the culture of our children or the young ones to be content with the little that they have. There is too much desire of having things just because they've seen them from other people. They've seen others, you know, who boast with the iPhone, who boast with the one. And the young girls, you find they get attracted and desire to have these things. At times, you find they become vulnerable because they desire so much to have these things. In these families, like other members of parliament have said, I think we need to sit down and get back to the way it were, where we were taught to value the little that we have and be content. Because when there is so much envy of having the things that you can't even afford, that's where we see the young girls going beyond what they can do and find themselves being victims of these abuses. The other issue I wanted to talk about also is alcohol and substance abuse. It's very unfortunate that you will find that even when the government is trying so hard to deal with that issue, you find even here within us in Parliament, some would want to use that. Want to use that as something that would give them relevance now to fight even for what is wrong. Mr. Speaker, I think when we begin to talk about national values, they should start also with us. When you stand to support, what is it that you are supporting? And do you understand the repercussions of what you are supporting? Because today there was a question that was talking about the issues of some strange alcohol that is even killing people. But we remember just some few months ago when the Minister of Local Government, when he was trying to stop those who are brewing those cachasus, the opposition took that and it became an issue where they wanted to show relevance. I think all of us should be united and be able to support so that we can tell these issues of alcohol and substance abuse. Mr. Speaker, all in all, when we look at our national values, it is calling upon us to get back to the family. If the family is strong and if the family is principled, it will raise the children that will be principled, that will value one another. Let's get back to the motto of doing unto others what you'd want others to do unto you. We learn those, then we will be able to value one another. And when we learn to value one another, definitely we will not have a time where we see these issues rising. But because also we are coming from a little period of maybe 7-10 years where violence became a standard in Zambia for you to survive, I think let's just come together and be able to fight this as leaders and as Zambians, because the effect will not choose who to affect. It will affect all of us. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Namwala.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add 2 or 3 sentences to this very important report which is on the floor of this House today. Mr. Speaker, purely the animal in man is what is making us debate today and look at this issue. Mr. Speaker, failure to comprehend and respect family values, again, is another reason why we are debating this today. I'm a very proud Member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, to have a report of such nature being brought before us. They have purely indicated the causes of this gender-based violence. And these causes, Mr. Speaker, are what we know, but we have always failed to implement or to bring them to a halt. And it has a lot of negative effects because the committee or the society or families have deliberately, in some cases, failed to respect the values which we found and which we know we have an obligation to actually respect. Mr. Speaker, the issue of child marriage is one issue that has brought a lot of minuses in our society, and it's the reason why today the committee has decided to bring it before our House, and that we need to sit and think through on what we are supposed to do so that we protect not only our children, but the community at large. The levels of poverty and vulnerability is one of the causes. Further, Mr. Speaker, the abuse of alcohol and other substances. We have a duty as members of Parliament to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, we go out there and sensitize our people through our constituencies that these vices, if they are left unchecked, this same community or society we're living in, at some point will have nothing to point at. Hence, being our first responsibility to ensure that the good wills or the good values are respected throughout. And we are like that, Mr. Speaker. In Zambia, we have a couple of laws that have been enacted purely to bring this thing to a halt. The Constitution itself talks a lot about this gender violence. And this shows that the Republic has a duty and they want to see that laws or values, norms are respected in our society. Further, Mr. Speaker, it's not only the Constitution that looks at this issue of gender-based violence. We have the Penal Code. A lot of laws have been enacted. Because when you look at the issue of gender-based violence, Mr. Speaker, it has a lot to do with the human rights, violation of people's rights, violation of people's liberties. And these are things that we need to ensure that the country, through the laws, we actually enact laws that will help us to bring this vice to a halt. And this is the reason why the Penal Code, which is Chapter 87 of the laws of this Republic, speaks volumes on the same issue of discrimination and the issues of other vices. Apart from that, Mr. Speaker, we have Anti-Gender Violence Act. This as well talks a lot about this same vice. But the only problem that, Mr. Speaker, I want to suggest is that these laws that we have, the problem is the issue of implementation. We shall talk day and night concerning the same vice, but if the attitude towards implementation and take full responsibility, if Mr. Speaker is not there, we shall continue talking about this issue year in, year out. We have enough laws, the communities are aware about what is happening, the values that we need to respect, we are all aware about them, but the problem is implementation. Then the question again will be, who is supposed to do the implementation? The answer is everyone. Now, if the answer is everyone, what role are we playing as individuals? Mr. Speaker, as long as the answer is not given and we are not willing to participate, to take responsibility and full ownership, we'll still get back to what we are and what we were before. So really the duty lies to everyone. Laws are enough. They have told us exactly in the report what's supposed to be done, the causes, but the issue is at the implementation level. Once, Mr. Speaker, we totally agree, all of us collectively, we shall get where we want to. Mr. Speaker, these few words I submit.
The Honourable Minister will respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank the chairperson and all the members of the Committee on National Guidance and Gender Matters for the well-elaborated report presented to this House today on matters that hinge on the effectiveness or effective responses in the fight against gender-based violence. I commend the committee for the thorough work done, which I have no doubt will enhance the delivery and management of gender-based violence services in the country going forward. Mr. Speaker, some speakers that presented talked about having a gender ministry, and I want to tell this august House that yes, previously there was a gender ministry, but we didn't see much progress done through that full-flegged ministry. Mr. Speaker, in the last 2 years, having a gender department with some functions falling under my ministry, we have opened or commissioned 3 safe houses in 2 years, coming to the total of 7. And we are yet to commission 4 more safe houses before the year ends. Mr. Speaker, yes, it was also mentioned that the numbers of gender-based violence cases have gone up. This is as a result of the toll-free call center that the ministry set up. So we are able to receive a lot of complaints through this call center, hence the number going up. And apart from that, Mr. Speaker, we have reached out as a ministry to the House of Chiefs, and in most chiefdoms, the reports are coming through. That's why you see that now we have a lot of cases being reported, and we have encouraged victims not to withdraw these cases, but see to it that justice prevails. Mr. Speaker, in line with this, we are also working in collaboration with the Ministry of Justice. We have set up fast-track courts in most capital cities in the country, with the latest being in Kasama. So, in response to the raised issues in the report, as well as contributions made by members during the debate, my ministry commits to ensuring that the gaps that you have identified, such as inadequate institutional capacity and staff